Next, I'm excited to have the panel of town and city managers and the economic director from the County of San Bernardino. I'd like to welcome to the stage Doug Robertson, town manager of Apple Valley, Rachel Molina, deputy city manager of the city of Hesperia, Tony Camargo, the assistant city manager, Barstow, California, Derek Armstrong, economic development director for the County of San Bernardino, and Jesse Flores, city of Adelanto. Welcome, everyone. So, who's got the biggest news first? Someone's smiling. Well, what we'd like to do is, and I'm very gracious and thankful that you guys and gals joined us this year. Every year, they provide updates on what's going on in the cities and town and county, both from a commercial standpoint, housing standpoint, and also what's going on in the city, whether it's infrastructure or capital improvements you have planned. So I'll start with Rachel. Let's go ahead and dive into, yes, I think the mics should be live. Let's dive into commercial development. What happened in 2022 and what do you see happening in 2023?
Thank you very much, Jason. Hesperia continues to see quite a bit of industrial development. As was shared earlier, we have 12 million square feet of industrial development in the development process right now. And so that means that, especially along the freeway corridor, development is bustling. We have the opportunity to add upwards of 10,000 jobs as a result of those projects, both temporary and permanent. And that's a big deal for our region. And so that keeps the city very, very busy. We understand that a lot of our residents across the Mojave River Valley are looking for opportunities for employment here in the region, and so this is much needed and welcomed. And while that was true last year, it continues to be true this year. We continue to have conversations with developers on further interests in the freeway corridor in that respect, and so we don't anticipate that changing anytime soon.
Yeah. And interesting, 12 million square feet, to put it in perspective, we only hit 20 million square feet of total industrial development a few years ago. And yet we have 12 million just in the city of Hesperia currently being planned. That tells you how quickly industrial is expanding in this area. Doug, I believe the town of Apple Valley has a little bit of development also in North Apple Valley?
Yeah, it's if you owned or own land in North Apple Valley, it's going to be a good year for you. I'm going to ask staff not to send data points to you for next year. Bob already talked about most of this, but we do have 4.6 million actually in our entitlement process right now. I won't look over at my staff right now when I say that there's probably at least double that also still in discussions. Obviously, some of that may be developer who's talking to multiple landowners, so we don't know if that's duplicative of what we've already got in-house or perhaps just shopping around. But I think our numbers are pretty similar to Hesperia's if we look a little further into the future. So that has generated renewed commercial development opportunities in North Apple Valley that we're excited about. Obviously, there's a train coming. I won't talk too much about that because you'll have a full presentation on that, but we're looking forward to those 10 to 13,000 construction jobs. We're looking forward to the 20,000 new jobs coming to Barstow as well, because we know that when they start shopping for a home, they're going to start looking at Apple Valley. So we're thrilled that the whole valley is growing. So Bob mentioned, it is what it is, right? And it's not an accident that we were the best place to live 11 years running.
No one's competitive here at all.
We're not competitive at all. And by the way, I have to point out, I've been doing this a little while. When we first started, Jason, I was the young guy on the panel. Look at me now. I had dark hair, then I went gray in Victorville, I went white in Apple Valley, and now apparently I don't even care enough to shave anymore. So. But life is good in Apple Valley.
Just for clarification, when you started the town of Apple Valley, you didn't have gray hair. I'm just saying.
No, when I started in Victorville, Victorville turned me gray, Apple Valley turned me white. I don't know what's going on now. So, but in addition to the north end, we also recently had 45,000 square feet of medical office building open up in Apple Valley as well. So we're thrilled about that. We're looking at some financing districts to help pay for all of the infrastructure that's going to be needed in the north end of our city. So that's it in a nutshell, other than what you already gave to Bob and Jared earlier today. So.
Really? And so I can't ask you about Sprouts.
You know, I heard a rumor about Sprouts coming to Apple Valley.
Yeah.
I may have been on a conference call, a Zoom call with their CEO not long ago, maybe even a week ago. But we're, as you know, we're pretty conservative about talking about any plans that are in-house until, you know, they get through every entitlement, because there are folks in the world, I know it will shock everybody, there are folks in the world who, I don't want to say they don't want to see development. They see development and they start to salivate just a little bit, because there's opportunity for them there to talk to that development about conservation and important issues that they care deeply, deeply about, and then settle for a large sum of money in order to have talked about those issues. So we tend to be conservative on that side. So
Shakedown.
I'll just leave it at there.
This mic's live. Sorry. So, well, I'll go ahead and dive in. Tony, you guys have quite a bit going on also.
Yeah, so I think,
Speaking of Sprouts.
speaking of Sprouts, like our neighboring cities, we're seeing a lot of commercial development, mostly industrial. Thanks to the efforts with our developer, Prologis, last year we constructed 2.4 million square feet of industrial. Among that, anchoring that development was Amazon, which recently opened 2 weeks ago. It's currently expected to bring 1,000 jobs to the community. Among that 2.4 million square feet is a Mars pet care distribution facility, as well as a large warehouse and storage facility for Iron Mountain. So we do have a 475,000 square foot industrial building being constructed out at Southern California Logistics Airport now, and we have at least 2 million more in the pipeline.
Wow.
That, just to kind of put it in perspective, all the development last year equates to almost all of the square footage over the past 22 years. So
Wow.
SCLA is booming. We're definitely seeing some growth out there. I kind of just want to get a show of hands, but anyone in the audience, do you guys remember playing the former West Winds golf course out at SCLA or George Air Force Base? So there's a few of you. So recently we just sold that property to Covington, who's our other developer. That property consisted of 166 acres for $13 million, and there's almost approximately 1.5 million square feet planned to be developed there. So we're seeing some growth continue out at SCLA. And if you guys haven't been out there, I keep saying booming, but it's booming out there. So I encourage you to drive out there, take a look at it. And SCLA continues to be the largest employment center. They're offering over 3,400 jobs in the Victor Valley. So we're excited to bring more jobs to the community and look forward to the industrial growth. And I think like the other city manager said, is we're going to see the growth continue in industrial amongst all cities. So
That's great. Any type of retail?
yeah, so on our retail, we do have last year we welcomed 200 commercial permits with 69 business retailers, such as Six Beans, Vegan Vato, Dutch Brothers, and a part of that is there's under construction of the large CarMax off of Roy Rogers, as well as the Superior Grocer. So I know you've mentioned it before, and the city of Victorville did host a post release and social media post last week announcing Sprouts coming to Victorville. So we are excited to announce that. You should see that opening in the fourth quarter of 23.
That was before Apple Valley, right?
Since we're competitive, yes.
Yes.
So
just leveling the field, Doug.
yeah.
Hey,
So we
Tony,
will-
I
yeah.
closed that golf course in the recession in 2009, by the way, just to let you know. You're welcome.
Well, thank you. There's a reasoning you closed it. So yeah, Sprouts will be the first in the Victor Valley. We're excited about that. So all of those who commute down the hill to drive to Sprouts to get your healthy food, you won't have to drive down there anymore, as everything will be local. And hopefully we'll welcome one if Doug's eventually able to get one in Apple Valley. But for now, we'll stick to Victorville. So
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Kody, thank you for driving over. As I mentioned earlier, Willie is not feeling well this morning, but Kody at the last minute jumped in, so thank you. So, City of Barstow, we won't attack big yet. What else is going on in Barstow besides the obviously big project?
Yeah, we'll hold off. We'll hold off to that announcement a little bit later. So I appreciate the invitation. So City of Barstow right now is absolutely exciting time. We've got construction on the long-awaited First Avenue Bridge project. That's a joint project between the city, SBCTA, and BNSF Railway in preparation of City of Barstow's expansion. We signed a recently approved a service contract with PlaceWorks, widely recognized consulting agency, to assist with the city with the update of the general plan, with the expectation of the large growth that we're expecting in our region. The new 178-room Marriott is scheduled to open up early summer of 2023. We've got various restaurants such as Freddy's and Panda Express that are also in construction and or recently opened. City Council also approved a combination of approximately 29 different cannabis applications, revitalizing an old vacant mall area with various dispensary operations, as well as cultivation, manufacture, and distribution. So the City of Barstow, we've got various industrial properties that are also in entitlement that I won't talk about, at least at this moment in time. But the City of Barstow right now is absolutely exciting time at this moment.
Now, you're talking about a former mall. He says that like it's like 3 stores. It's the former Factory Merchants Mall of over 300,000 square feet.
Yes.
Even Snoop Dogg would be a little bit impressed with that. So, I guess you need a cannabis outlet. That's perfect. So, Derek from the County of San Bernardino, thank you for joining us today. What's going on in the county as far as commercial industrial development?
Yeah. Thank you for having me as well, and I appreciate all the speakers and hearing about all of the projects. So, I think for the county, we're able to support a lot of the projects, and I've been able to meet with some of the folks here to talk about, whether it's BIG or SCLA or some of the other projects that are occurring. But the one thing that I think that we haven't heard during this today is we've heard a lot of hope about companies wanting to be here and the growth and all the excitement, along with some of the uncertainty, is that I think this area, the high desert, is going to be the area of growth for the county, more so than the other parts of the county. Typically, we talk about the East and West Valley, Ontario, Fontana, Rancho, those areas. But the truth is that there's not a lot of large tracts of land to do big projects there. And in addition to that, it's harder to do projects there than it is here, just due to some of the regulations as it equates to air quality and some of the other things that occur. So if I could leave you with a big announcement, other than this is the last panel that will be speaking before brackets will be busted in the NCAA tournament, is that the high desert's the area that a lot of this growth that will come. And we're seeing that. And the good thing from my position is I get to deal with companies as they're looking at different areas, and they're starting to look here more and more. And so I think and I feel that the growth in this area will continue to develop. It will continue to be strong. Some of the uncertainty with the increase in mortgage rates and penciling out projects might become a little bit of a struggle over the next couple of years, but those are temporary issues that we'll get through, and that the long-term growth in this area is very promising. And during your last presentation, you had briefly mentioned foreign investment as well. And we are starting to see a lot of foreign investors looking to locate companies in San Bernardino County as well. Typically, those have gone to Orange and LA County, just to be close to the LA markets, but we're seeing more and more of that demand here. Talking about markets like China and Japan and South Korea, Singapore, those Southeast Asian countries are looking to San Bernardino County to enter the U.S. market. So those are great things as well. But one of the things that I think about in economic development is really setting the stage for continued growth, right? We have all these projects, but how do you then support it for what's next? And so as I was preparing for this, I wanted to take one of those sectors, and that's really renewable energies, because that's really a hot topic, and trying to be able to forecast or try to see that if there's going to be available energy for projects in the future. And just a quick overview, for approved under construction and projects that are under planning just for solar, it equates to, in the high desert, so in the first district, who's the sponsor for the event,
Yes.
there's projects that cover over 10,000 acres, so 10,305 acres, representing 2,113 megawatts of energy. And to equate that into houses, and it depends on how much a house uses for electricity, how many Teslas they have, but it's roughly about, that supports roughly 2 million homes. So that's a tremendous amount of solar energy that's coming into just this area. And we're talking to companies that are looking to do other renewables as well, including hydrogen or others. So I think that there's a promise that there's going to be increased capacity for additional growth as we move forward.
Yep. That's great. Thank you.
And I'll take that as my cue.
Jesse, thank you. How's Atalanta doing? I'm going to first ask you about commercial development, and then industrial, and then we'll segue into housing. So thank you for coming.
Thank you, Jason. You know, the city of Atalanta has come a long way in a very short period of time. First of all, Jason, thank you for hosting these symposiums. This is a platform where we can all come together and share what's happening in our individual cities. Everything and anything that happens amongst our cities has an impact. As Doug said a moment, he's going to have Barstow residents living in Apple Valley. That is the case. I'll tell you, you can't drive south on the 15 freeway and 395 without seeing these amazing warehouses in Hesperia. You can't drive north, heading towards Vegas, and not see all the amazing things that are happening in the Barstow area with BNSF, the Barstow outlets. And you can't, I mean, Apple Valley, what can you not say about the town of Apple Valley? It's amazing here. Keith, I'll tell you, Keith Metzler, who is not here with us today, Tony, please extend our regards and our sincere gratitude for everything that is happening at the former George Air Force Base, Southern California Logistics Airport. That, too, has a tremendous impact on what's happening in the city of Atalanta. It just spills over. We talked about solar. We have a 1,200-acre solar farm currently underway, and the off-taker is going to be the Amazon Fulfillment Center that you currently have at the airport. So we, in the city of Atalanta, started it a little bit different, where we immediately embarked in creating jobs. We have 2 industrial parks in our area. We have a very unique city with 2 industrial parks. We're 55 square miles. We're about, 18% built out. And so that's a tremendous opportunity for additional warehouse distribution and other types of economic development opportunities. So we talked about cannabis a moment ago. That was one of the low-hanging fruits for us at the time, where we embarked on that, and that is bringing the city about $4.5 million in tax revenues. And so to this point, to this time, it's still a sustainable industry that's growing on its own, no pun intended. We're now focusing on other types of industries. As I mentioned, solar, a big deal. Hydrogen, we're moving in that direction as well. We recently attracted companies such as Clark Pacific that's going to be breaking ground on phase 2. They've shut down their Fontana operations. It's one of Southern California's largest concrete precast manufacturers in our city on 110 acres. We attracted Copart into our city, one of the largest auto online dealers in the country. They're on 100 acres. General Atomics, General Dynamics is also in our city. So these are aerospace companies that we're really excited to have. As far as your question is commercial, is that what you asked, Jason?
Yes, commercial, industrial.
Yeah, we're going vertical on the Adelanto Town Center that is located on Highway 395 and Mojave. It's a long-awaited project that that it's going to be a gas station, convenience store, and several commercial retail pads on phase one. There's about 3 phases, I believe, 3 or 4 phases. And after the first phase is completed, the additional phases will continue. We have a hotel, 100 suite Holiday Inn hotel coming in at the intersection of Air Expressway and 395, directly across the street from City Hall. And we also have a travel center coming in at the intersection of Rancho Road and Highway 395. So all of that's going to support the events that are taking place at our stadium on a weekend basis. So we're really excited about what's happening in our city right now.
That's amazing, and especially 4.7 million in tax revenue created from the cannabis industry.
That is correct.
So Kody's hoping to do the same with a little mall. So Rachel, I'm going to turn it back to you on housing, and for the convenience of time, I'll also ask you about any infrastructure and capital improvements and projects in the city of Hesperia.
Thank you. As was mentioned earlier, we still have quite a bit of interest in multifamily housing with waiting lists for vacancies there at all the project sites, and so that's a really good indicator of how popular that is and how people are looking for that gap housing before they buy their first home. With respect to single-family residential, it looks like there's some slowing in that respect in the construction of those units, but we're on track to deliver about 150 units this year. We've talked a lot about the Silverwood project, the master plan community plan for Southern Hesperia, and it's a pleasure to work with that developer on that project. They have a very beautiful vision to deliver 15,000 homes over roughly 30 years, and that vision really focuses on incorporating the natural beauty of our mountain ranges and the Pacific Crest Trail into their project, and so it's very unique in our region, and we're very excited about it. And with respect to capital improvement projects, we have a robust CIP budget and lots of projects that we're working through, and so the CIP this fiscal year is roughly $50 million, and so we're delivering projects that include basin projects that are much needed, as we've seen with the recent storm activity in our region. It's very difficult for desert communities like ours to have enough funding for stormwater projects when we very rarely get rain, but when we do, it can be very damaging without those facilities. So those are some of the things that are being prioritized right now in Hesperia.
Yeah, thank you. And what a year for rain. We don't seem to get a break. Doug, how's the housing in Apple Valley? Do you have any housing in Apple Valley?
We've got a little bit. I mean, we're steady. We're not, known for big housing projects. If you look at our history, the only time we really got into the, several hundreds of permits a year was when Sun City and Jess Ranch were under development. They've completed that development, although there is some more interest in that area, I'll say. So we had just under 100 permits last year. Our big news, which again was shared by Jared earlier today, thanks Jason, is our multifamily housing. So I mentioned it at last year's symposium. That the council recognized lack of multifamily housing development in Apple Valley for a number of years, I'll say maybe a decade or more. And so they asked us to form an ad hoc committee, 2 council members, 2 planning commissioners, as well as some members of the community who were from the sort of known in the multifamily industry. I think Bob Basin was actually part of that. And they met at local architect's office, who happens to be here in the audience, to go over the site planning for apartments. One of the things that was discovered in our code was that although maybe our code says it allowed for 12 units per acre in an area, when you look at the setbacks, the requirements for trash enclosures, the requirements for open space, suddenly it really was not physically possible to put 12 units on that parcel. So the reason they met in an architect's office was because he has these giant TV screens, and they could, it was a very painful meeting one time when they said, well, what if we move the setback 10 feet and the parking 5 feet and then the trash enclosure 2 feet? And I kind of stopped them and said, why don't we meet why don't you meet somewhere where you can see it on a screen and you can adjust and make it make sense? So that's what they did. They sat down together and they drew out developments that made sense, and then they wrote it down. It's almost impossible to try to visualize that as you're talking about 15 feet, 25 feet setbacks and whatnot. So as a result, we've got 5 new multifamily housing development projects coming in, and interest in more, the big one Jared mentioned earlier. So that's really where our new housing is coming from. As I mentioned earlier, as all these jobs come to the high desert, we know there will be renewed interest. And Jason, if you can give me just 1 minute, I skipped over commercial. You and I were too busy making jokes, which is what we tend to do. But a little bit of commercial growth in Apple Valley, back up, and then I'll pass it on along. But so Crumble Cookie, hopefully you all came and got a cookie. Old Navy came to Apple Valley last year. Tomahawk Axe Throwing, I know that was mentioned earlier. Axe Throwing, yes. Tomahawk Axe Throwing is right near the corner of Apple Valley Road and Highway 18, which when we talk about infrastructure is an award-winning project, the project of the year for the American Public Works Association division. And then to announce, we actually have Cold Stone Creamery coming back to the high desert. There we go, big Cold Stone fan back there. Chris, I see you. I see you, Chris. So that's actually going to be right across the street from Town Hall, near Starbucks in that center there. And then I'm also proud to announce that Bath and Body Works is coming to Jess Ranch Marketplace as well. I see more clapping. Is that you again, Chris, for Bath and Body Works? And then we do have 3 new grocery centers, anchored centers in our entitlement process. So we're hoping to see at least one of those sprout up along Bear Valley Road, just east of the Jess Ranch Marketplace.
Did you get a text message from Orlando telling you to mention these?
So Orlando yelled at me a few years back when Big Lots was in the market, and everyone knew it. They were looking in Hesperia, they were looking in Victorville, they were looking in Apple Valley. We don't know if they were looking elsewhere. And sitting, it wasn't this stage, but sort of this stage, in one of these chairs, I mentioned that there is a very large 1.3 million square foot building coming to one of us, we don't know who, but it's going to be big and there's going to be lots of things inside. And I think I was still on the stage when Orlando texted me. I was actually the city manager of Victorville. We didn't get that project, but I was really excited to open it up after I got to Apple Valley and got to be there for the ribbon cutting. So thank you, Orlando, for landing that project so that I can take credit for it.
One quick question. Any other infrastructure planned for the town of Apple Valley?
We finished the big project I talked about. Our big focus, we do street overlays every year. Our roads, when we inherited them from the county, were terrible. They continue to be slightly better than terrible. And so most of our projects are sort of trying to preserve them as best we can with the limited funding we can. We split the town up into 7 areas because that's how much funding we have. So we're about 2/3 of the way through that process of essentially repaving poorly, but repaving every street in town, and then we're sort of assessing that. But the big project we're focused on now is the Bear Valley Bridge over the river. It's going to be expanded with bike lanes and sort of rebuilt, if you will, hopefully soon. We are in the entitlement phase. We are in the design phase, and we're just looking for about $30 million or so, and then we'll get started on it.
Just $30 million.
Yeah.
Thank you. Since we're talking about paving, Derek, there's a section of road at top of Walloot and down to Moccasin I need paved. So we can talk about that later. But let's move into infrastructure and county side. What do you see coming in 2023, and what might be in the works for us?
Yeah. I think there's been some road construction that's been completed over the last year when we're talking about areas like Phelan with the Baldy Mesa Road, Phelan Road intersection improvements. The county is participating in 2 of the city's larger projects as well with Hesperia for the Hesperia Road widening, which is a $53 million project, and then Victorville with the Green Tree extension as well. So I think that there's a couple of infrastructure projects that are moving forward and are planned. I think for the county and probably for the mountain ranges at this point, and there's going to be a ton of infrastructure that needs to go into there after the storm recovery. We've been hearing stories of of all sorts of road issues with the growing potholes and everything that's being messed up, because those roads are fairly old. They weren't meant for the amount of snow that came, and to be able to remove those. So I think the focus for the county, at least for the next year, will probably be in that mountain area and trying to be able to rehab a lot of those roads over there.
Oh, thank you. Tony, you have a little project you're almost completed with,
Yeah, just a small project.
little bridge?
Little bridge. As most of you are aware, the Green Tree extension.
Yeah.
We're expanding Green Tree Boulevard from Hesperia Road over to Yates and Ridgecrest. So that 1.6-mile extension actually encompasses a 600-foot bridge over the BNSF Railroad. So we're excited to that. I've probably heard that through that discussion maybe 2 decades. I'm sure there's people in the audience that have wanted to see that a lot sooner. But it's exciting to see that finally come to completion. Definitely want to thank the town of Apple Valley for their support during that project and maintaining that strong relationship, because it's not only going to benefit, obviously, the city of Victorville, the town of Apple Valley, but the entire region. So we're excited to see that. Look for an announcement for the opening, but you should see that open looking at May of 2023. So it's just around the corner. We also are widening the Bear Valley Road Bridge. We're widening that to encompass a dual turn lane from eastbound Bear Valley traffic onto Ridgecrest heading north. The design is created to decrease the traffic flow on Bear Valley, but more specifically, just kind of, that's a busy intersection.
Thank
so
you,
that
by the
dual
way.
turn lane should significantly see a decrease in flow. But again, we're excited about that Green Tree extension. That's going to be huge. And then we do have on the horizon a capital project on Bear Valley, which is between Amethyst and 395. So that should begin in August of this year and be completed in the first quarter of 2024.
Great. I think Doug calls that the Yucca-Loma extension, by the way.
I was going to mention that, yeah.
Gotcha.
Real quick, housing. How's housing in Victorville, both 2022 and what do you see in 2023?
Yeah, so as mentioned earlier, we do have several multifamily projects.
Yeah.
As such, our city council actually waived all our development impact fees in our Old Town area to try and attract mixed use. We know the need for it, we see the desire, so we definitely are encouraging developers to look at the Old Town area to develop. Last year, we issued 561 single-family residential permits. It wasn't as large as our 2021 numbers, but it's definitely comparable to our 2019 and 2020 figures. So we are seeing a slow downturn in those submissions, but I think like everyone else, it's due to the economy.
Yeah.
But we do have 8 active home builders constructing houses right now, so there is still heavy activity throughout the city of Victorville.
No, that's great. Thank you. Kody, City of Barstow. I know you have a little infrastructure before we get into that, the First Street Bridge, which, by the way, was scary to cross when I was in high school a long, long time ago. Glad to see that's getting torn down. But housing, how's the housing market look in Barstow right now as far as new construction?
Yeah, so City of Barstow, housing has been quiet for quite some time, but recently we have Linwood Estates, 100 track home housing project, as well as Rimrock Homes approved with 147 home housing tract that's been approved as well. We expect with the project, BNSF project, housing already is a need where, throughout the entire high desert is going to just continue to grow and exacerbate. So I think rising tide lifts all boats, and so I think the entire high desert is going to feel the benefit of this project moving forward in Barstow.
Oh, thank you. Any other capital improvements or projects planned in the future besides First Street Bridge?
Yeah, so I know I touched on the First Street Bridge, which is long overdue for replacement. The city of Barstow continues to work on street overlays, street replacement, stormwater investment projects. The wastewater treatment facilities currently has a construction project that's underway right now with a touch on renewable energy as well. And we just look forward to the projects to move forward. As you mentioned, 20,000 jobs has a pretty significant impact on a community with a population of 25,000 in our incorporated area. So it's going to be an exciting time.
Absolutely. Thank you. Jesse, housing, and we covered a little bit, but infrastructure in Adelanto. Tell us what's happening both last year and what you see in the future.
Sure, Jason. So with the number of jobs that we created in both of our industrial parks, cannabis and non-cannabis related, that created a demand for housing. And we have D.R. Horton, Frontier Communities, and Cahovinian Homes that combined built just under 600 single-family homes, all sold out. As soon as they were built, we can't keep up with demand. And just recently, as of 2 weeks ago, D.R. Horton broke ground on another 107 homes. So we're just under 700 homes that we've built combined within the last few years. These are amazing developers that we're really proud of having in our backyard as well. A couple of developers that I see in the audience that also played a major role is Mr. Pham, Andrew Pham, and his father. We thank you for coming to our city and also building a nice track for us. As far as infrastructure goes, the path of growth is heading towards our north end of town. It's happening in all areas of our city, but we see that it's going now further north out by the fulfillment center in Victorville, out in that area by the airport. And so we're investing heavily in infrastructure as well as a trunk line, a water line that's going to be connecting from the existing line off of Rancho Road and Adelanto Road. It's going to head north all the way to Auburn. We also just recently completed a paving project off of White and Adelanto Road, adjacent to the fulfillment center there at the airport, and that went all the way east to Montezuma, Montezuma to Chamberlain, Chamberlain to Jonathan. And the other project that we're going to be paving here really soon is going to be off of Innovation Way, which is right, again, everything's about Victorville. For us, you're adjacent to our city. And that becomes Bartlett, and that's going to go all the way west, about a mile or so, to Posiana Road. So, as we continue to attract these funds, whether they're through Measure I, SB1, we don't hold on to the monies. We immediately deploy it into our infrastructure. What else is happening out there? We're doing currently a citywide master wastewater and water study that's underway. The tremendous amount of growth that has taken place in our city has impacted our wastewater treatment plant, and we don't want to get to full capacity. We want to get in front of that. So that just kind of demonstrates what's really truly happening in our city under this administration, under this leadership.
Well, thank you. Thank you, everyone. One of the wonderful things in the high desert is access to city government and also their willingness to sit down, talk, and encourage development. I want to thank you for your time today, and please give them a warm welcome, and thank you.